Terry and Shayna, go ahead.
I went with this computer because I don't have trouble unmuting, but I still have trouble unmuting. Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Lewisburg Primary Purpose Big Book Study Group. Our study follows a 96-week cycle that begins with a cover page and continues through page 164. Along the way, we revisit spiritual experience in Appendix 2 3 times. And we also cover two employers, two wives, Dr. Bob's Nightmare, and the 12 traditions before starting the cycle again. We are now in our 6th year of using this format, and we're grateful you're here to be part of it. Oh, it's blue.
Oh, my name is Shayna, and I am a recovered alcoholic.
My name is Terry, and I'm a recovered alcoholic. Before we begin, please be aware that the first 90 minutes of this meeting will be recorded in audio only for our website, podcasts, and YouTube channel. If you miss the study portion, you can listen to it online. Study pages will also be listed. Be sure to check out the information posted in the chat throughout the meeting. Any announcements for the greater of AA and of this group?
Good evening, family. My name is Jamie, very grateful recovered alcoholic. And this Sunday from 11:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Central Time, we will be having our pre-conference session with our delegate, Heather L. I will be doing that as a hybrid, so I will get the information posted in the chat, and we've got a group conference coming up next week as well for those of you who are home group members. If you're not a home group member and you want to come see what we do in this group, you're more than welcome to join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Tonight's recap is on page 54 to 55, read by Terry. And our study is pages 55 through 57, read by Larry.
Please take a moment to settle in and get comfortable. We take our big book seriously, and we want everyone to feel present and connected as we begin. In a moment, we'll take a 3-minute meditation followed by the fog light prayer. As we move into the study, please help us maintain a peaceful environment. Be mindful of background noise when unmuted. If you wouldn't do it in a live meeting, please don't do it on Zoom. Stay muted during other shares. We will call on hands raised in order.
Look forward to the first edition. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. For the meditation, focus on breath and posture, breathe in God, breathe out self. Take this time to reconnect with God and release the day.
All right, let's have our secretary's report.
Can we do the monks?
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm very distracted. I apologize. Please do the monks and the fog light prayer.
Please join us in the fog light prayer. God, let your love shine through us like a fog light, so that those who are lost, sick, and dying can find your love through us. Amen.
Thank you, Trish. And now let's have our secretary's report. Steph, are you coming in?
She's coming.
Oh,
Okay, sorry, I was waiting to be unmuted. Hi, my name is Stephanie, and I'm your recovered alcoholic secretary. I have asked Kenny to read the recovered statement to explain why many in this group identify as recovered. Kenny?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Kenny, alcoholic, recovered. We are not cured for alcoholism. Recovered but not cured. That presents a conflict to some alcoholics. If we were cured, we would be able to drink responsibly. No, we are not cured. The allergic reaction to alcohol will remain with us for a lifetime. But we have been restored to sanity. That was the problem. The main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. Page 23. We now are sane when alcohol is concerned. Consequently, we have recovered.
Thank you, Kenny. We meet every Tuesday, 5:30 p.m. Central Time. We have fellowship. Our big book study begins at 6:30, and chat will be disabled during that time. From the forward to the second edition, 50% got sober at once, 25% sobered after some relapses, the remainder improved. Do we have any first-time visitors?
I think we have a few. Sandwana and Lucia, welcome.
welcome.
I'm very glad you're here.
Oh, and James.
Welcome. We have recovered alcoholics. These are your potential sponsors. Is anybody having a milestone this week? Is anybody celebrating a milestone?
Don't see any.
Okay, if you need a big book, we can send a large print copy. Please let one of us know by chat after the meeting. Please practice the 7th tradition using the links in the chat. We encourage you to get a big book and work with an untreated alcoholic. Thank you, and Lord willing, see you next week.
Thank you, Steph. And from There Is a Solution, we have discovered a common solution, a way out on which we can absolutely agree. This is an open meeting and everyone is welcome. You are not required to identify yourself, and your anonymity, just like ours, will always be protected. Our group is for those who want to recover from alcoholism and have the desire to stop drinking for good and all. We also believe that every AA member is a potential sponsor, and we encourage each of us to take that responsibility to heart.
Okay. Last week, we reviewed Tradition 8. Tonight, we will read Tradition 9, which is found on page 562. And Jamie's going to talk about Tradition 9 tonight. Thanks, Jamie.
Good evening, family. My name is Jamie, very grateful recovered alcoholic, and welcome to all. Glad you are with us today. First, the short form of Tradition 9. AA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. And the long form. Excuse me. Each AA group needs the least possible organization. Rotating leadership is best. The small group may elect its secretary, the large group its rotating committee, and the groups of large metropolitan areas their central or intergroup committee, which often employs a full-time secretary. The trustees of the General Service Board are in effect the General Service Committee. They are the custodians of our AA traditions and the receivers of voluntary AA contributions by which we maintain our AA central office at New York. They are authorized by the groups to handle our overall public relations, and they guarantee the integrity of our principal newspaper, the AA Grapevine. All such representatives are to be guided in the spirit of service, for true leaders in AA are but trusted and experienced servants of the whole. They derive no real authority from their titles. They do not govern. Universal respect is the key to their usefulness. I absolutely love this tradition, and I'm going to touch on this first. The short form of the second tradition, where it says our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern, was borrowed from the ninth tradition. So in this group, we have several servants and excuse me, we have a chairperson for our group conscience. We have Shana as a group officer, and Larry is a group officer, and we have a couple others. I no longer hold a service position in the group. I'm the guy that just turns on the lights and mops the floors when everybody leaves, and I am quite okay with that because I love the idea of the spirit of rotation. But what goes on outside the group? Many people who come to Alcoholics Anonymous think, well, the meeting, that's it. That's all Alcoholics Anonymous is, and that just isn't true. We have an entire service structure. We are an upside-down triangle, and the groups are at the top of the triangle, meaning that the groups are the boss. And then we have the GSR of the group, and Larry's at the bottom of the food chain in this group, being the GSR, and he follows the mandate that is set in group conscience. I happen to be DCM of District 40. I have to follow the mandate of District 40 and the 5 groups that I represent. I don't carry my voice, I carry their voice, and that's the way it's supposed to work in Alcoholics Anonymous. And we have that all the way through our service structure, through the area level, through the I'll give you an example in Area 64, which this group happens to be a part of, which is the entire state of Tennessee. Our delegate carries the voice of about 180 groups to the General Service Conference, which will be coming up next month. Now that's a wonderful thing. However, here's the sad thing. We have about 700 registered groups in Alcoholics Anonymous in the state of Tennessee, and yet there's only about 180 groups that participate with representation. That means that there is a very large amount of Alcoholics Anonymous that, one, is not getting the information that we have, those of us who serve, have to provide for them, and they're not getting a voice to the area level or to the New York level for that matter. It talks about service boards and committees. There's approximately 14 different committees in Alcoholics Anonymous. Generally, it can be at the group level, certainly at the district level, and definitely at the area level. And those committees are committees like cooperation with professional community, public information, corrections committee, treatment committee, accessibilities committee, grapevine committee, and all of these things, all of these groups play their part. And while we have the spirit of rotation, and we within those committees we elect a chairperson, an alternate chair, a secretary, and a treasurer, nobody is the boss. The beautiful thing about Alcoholics Anonymous is there is no president. And even at our trustee level, the trustees rotate in and out, and I believe it's a total of a 6-year term for them, and they alternate. So there's always somebody with experience in that position. New people rotate in, and that's the way it works. Without it, folks, Alcoholics Anonymous wouldn't work. This meeting wouldn't be possible. Without these traditions, Alcoholics Anonymous would have died decades ago. So we all have a responsibility in our groups, in our personal lives, to practice the traditions in everything that we do. And we especially in this group observe our 5th tradition, which our primary purpose is to carry this group's message to the sick and suffering alcoholic. And what is this group's message? It's the message that's in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank you. See you next week for Tradition 10.
Thank you, Jamie. Okay, now it's time for That Ain't in the Book. We sometimes hear things in meetings that don't align with the Big Book. The topic for tonight is, this is a selfish program. Let's hear what the Big Book has to say about that. Jim, would you read from, I don't have it written down. What does the book have to say about that, Jim?
Thank you. I was waiting for you to unmute me. Okay, thank you so very much. Today we're going to read on page 62, paragraph 3, that ain't in the book. So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot, though he usually doesn't think so. Above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. God makes that possible. And there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. Oh, or must, or it kills us. I went too long. Sorry.
Thank you, Jim. Okay. Oh, it's Shayna's turn.
Now it's my time. So for some study instructions, be sure to use your pens, highlighters, and rulers as we study. We use a Joe and Charlie Crusty Cliff study guide to stay focused and consistent. After reading tonight's study, we will ask questions from the imaginary podium. Answers are one sentence in order, taken directly from the text. We read the material once then dissect it through question and answer. This helps us understand and apply the content clearly.
After the study, we open the meeting for comments based on the pages just read. Our purpose here is to stay in the book and let the message do the work. If a share drifts into something better handled with a sponsor, we'll kindly point you that way.
Bill W. wrote, Sobriety, freedom from alcohol. Through the teaching and the practice of the 12 steps is the sole purpose of any AA group.
Okay, before we begin the recap, we need 5 or 6 volunteers to read the answers. Okay. So it's time for the recap, which is going to be read tonight by Terry on page 54.
Hi everyone, I'm Terry and I'm a grateful alcoholic. We found too that we had been worshippers, with a state of mental goose flesh that used to bring on. Had we not variously worshipped people, sentiment, things, money, and ourselves? And then, with a better motive, had we not worshipfully beheld the sunset, the sea, or a flower? Who of us had not loved something or somebody? How much did these feelings, these loves, these worships have to do with pure reason? Little or nothing, we saw at last. Were not these things the tissue out of which our lives were constructed? Did not these feelings, after all, determine the course of our existence? It was impossible to say we had no capacity, faith, for love, for worship. In one form or another, we had been living by faith and little else. Imagine life without faith. Were nothing left but pure reason, it wouldn't be alive. But we believed in life. Of course we did. We could not prove life in the sense that you can prove a straight line is the shortest distance between 2 points. Yet, there it was. Could we still say the whole thing was nothing but a mass of electrons, created out of nothing, meaning nothing, whirling on a destiny of nothingness? Of course we couldn't. The electrons themselves seem more intelligent than that, at least so the chemist said. Hence we saw that reason isn't everything. Neither is reason, as most of it use it, entirely dependable, though it emanates from our best minds. What about people who proved that man could never fly? Yet we have been seeing another kind of flight, the spiritual liberation from this world, people who rose above their problems. They said God made these things possible, and we only smiled. We had seen spiritual release, but liked to tell ourselves it wasn't true. Actually, we were fooling ourselves, for deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. It may be obscured by calamity, by pomp, by worship of other things, but in some form or other it is there. For power greater than ourselves and miraculous demonstrations of that power in human lives are facts as old as man himself. We finally saw that faith in some kind of God was a part of our makeup, just as much as the feeling we have for a friend. Sometimes we had to search fearlessly, but he was there. He was as much a fact as we were. We found the great reality deep down within us. In the last analysis, it is only there that he may be found. It was so with us. Thank you for letting me read.
One more paragraph.
Sorry about that. We can only clear the ground a bit. Our testimony helps sweep away prejudice, enables you to think honestly, encourages you to search diligently within yourself. Then, if you wish, you can join us on the broad highway. With this attitude, you cannot fail. The consciousness of your belief is sure to come to you.
Thank you so much. Well done. Okay. Okay, Larry is gonna do, let me make sure I got enough hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I got enough hands. Larry is gonna read our study tonight, starting on page 55.
I'm Larry, and I'm an alcoholic. In this book, you will read the experience of a man who thought he was an atheist. His story is so interesting that some of us should be told now. His change of heart was dramatic, convincing, and moving. Our friend was a minister's son. He attended church school where he became rebellious at what he thought an overdose of religious education. For years thereafter, he was dogged by trouble and frustration, business failure, insanity, fatal illness, suicide. These calamities in his immediate family embittered and depressed him. Post-war disillusionment, even more serious alcoholism, impending mental and physical collapse brought him to the point of self-destruction. One night, when confined to a hospital, he was approached by an alcoholic who had known a spiritual experience. Our friend's gorge rose as he bitterly cried out, "If there is a God, he certainly hasn't done anything for me." But later, alone in his room, he asked himself this question: is it possible that all the religious people I have known are wrong? While pondering the answer, he felt as though he lived in hell. Then, like a thunderbolt, a great thought came. It crowded out all else. Who are you to say there is no God? This man recounts that he tumbled out of bed to his knees. In a few seconds, he was overwhelmed by a conviction of the presence of God. It poured over him, through him, and the certainty and majesty of a great tide at flood. The barriers he had built through the years were swept away. He stood in the presence of an infinite power and love. He had stepped from a bridge to shore. For the first time, he lived in conscious companionship with his Creator. Thus was our friend's cornerstone fixed in place. No later vicissitude has shaken it. His alcoholic problem was taken away. That very night, years ago, it disappeared, save for a few brief moments of temptation. The thought of drink has never returned, and at such times a great revulsion has risen up in him. Seemingly he could not drink even if he would. God had restored his sanity. What is this but a miracle of healing? Yet its elements are simple. Circumstances made him willing to believe. He humbly offered himself to his Maker. Then he knew. Even so, his God restored us all to our right minds. To this man, the revolution was sudden. Some of us grow into it more slowly, but he has come to all who have honestly sought him. When we drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us.
Thank you so much, Larry. Well done. Okay. For my answer readers tonight, Jacqueline, Joanne, Linda, Rick, and Jim. Speak slowly follow the text sentence by sentence. If you lose your place, you may pass or allow the question reader to guide you. Okay, so starting on page 55, we're going to start with Jacqueline. Is there a story of an atheist in this book?
In this book, you will read the experience of a man who thought he was an atheist.
Thank you. Joanne, why is it being mentioned at this point?
His story is so interesting that some of it should be told now.
Thank you. Linda, could it be that he had a spiritual experience as a result of trying this program?
His change of heart was dramatic, convincing, and moving.
Thank you. Rick, what kind of childhood did this man have?
Our friend was a minister's son.
Thank you. Jim, how did he come to feel about religious matters?
He attended church school where he became rebellious at what he thought an overdose of religious education.
Okay, back to you, Jacqueline. Was his life one of happiness and peace of mind?
For years thereafter, he was dogged by trouble and frustration.
Okay, Joanne, this is a two-parter. What thing did he experience and how did they affect him?
He experienced business failure, insanity, fatal illness, suicide, the calamity in his immediate family embittered and depressed him. Post-war.
Nope, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda, thank you. But that was not all. What else? Oh, this is a two-parter too, Linda. Let me start over. But what was not all? But that was not all. What else? Where did he wind up?
Post-war disillusionment, ever more serious, alcoholism, impending mental and physical collapse brought him to the point of self-destruction.
Great, thank you. Rick, who came to visit him?
One night, when confined in the hospital, he was approached by an alcoholic who had known a spiritual experience.
Hey, Jim, how often or how did the visit affect him?
Our friend's gorge rose as he bitterly cried out, "If there is a God, he certainly hasn't done anything for me."
Okay, back to you, Jacqueline. But later, what did he ask?
But later, alone in his room, he asked himself this question. Is it possible? Is it possible that all religious people I have known are wrong?
Thank you. Joanne, how did he feel when he began to think maybe he had been wrong? 3 sentences, please.
Why ponder the answer he felt as though he lived in hell? Then, like a thunderbolt, a great thought came. It crowded out all else.
Perfect. Okay, Linda, what thought overwhelmed him?
Who are you to say there is no God?
Okay, and Rick, what did he do?
This man recounts that he tumbled out of bed to his knees.
Jim, what happened almost immediately?
In a few seconds, he was overwhelmed by a conviction of the presence of God.
Jacqueline, how did it make him feel? How did it feel to him?
It poured over and through him with a certainty and majesty of a great tide of flood.
Joanne, what happened to his sense of reason?
The barrel he had built through the years was swept away.
Linda, where did he find himself?
He stood in the presence of infinite power and love.
Oh, isn't that wonderful? Rick, had he stepped into the world of the spirit?
Yeah, I stepped from the bridge to shore.
Cool. Jim, of what was he now conscious?
For the first time, he lived in conscious companionship with his Creator.
Thank you. Jacqueline, was he now on solid ground?
Thus, our friend cornerstone fixed, thus was our friend's cornerstone fixed in place.
Thank you. Joanne, had any drastic changes in his life altered his faith?
No, no later vicissitude has shaken him.
Linda, thank you. What happened to his drinking problem?
His alcoholic problem was taken away.
And Rick, did his higher power solve his problem?
That very night, years ago, it disappeared.
Wonderful. Thank you. Jim, this is a two-parter. To what extent did the thought of drinking return to him, and how did he react to those brief moments?
Save for a few brief moments of temptation, the thought of drink has never returned, and at such times a great revulsion has risen up in him.
Okay, Jacqueline, thank you. Had he now joined the first 100 as being a recovered alcoholic?
Seemingly, he could not drink, even if he would.
Thank you. Joanne, had the hope of step 2 become a reality in his life?
She's muted.
She's coming.
Thank you. Now I can unmute. I'm sorry.
Had the hope of step 2 become a reality in his life?
I lost my place. I pass.
Okay, so let's go to Linda. Had the hope of step 2 become a reality in his life?
Is it this one God had restored his sanity?
It certainly is. Thank you so much. Rick, what did we call this type of event?
What is this but a miracle of healing?
Perfect. Jim, are its elements complex?
Yet its elements are simple.
Back to you, Jacqueline. What made it possible for him to come to believe?
Circumstances made him willing to believe.
And Joanne, the two-parter, what did he do? And then he what?
He humbled over himself to his maker. Then he knew.
That's right. Okay, let's see what he knew. Linda, for how many had God repeated this miracle?
Even so has God restored us all to our right minds. To this man, the revelation was sudden.
Oh, no, that was just that one sentence. And Rick, this one's here. Does this man have a spiritual awakening or a spiritual experience?
Some of us grew into it more
No,
slowly.
to this man. What sentence before that? To this man.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. To this man, the revelation was sudden.
And I'll come in with my first comment. This was Fitzmayo's spiritual experience.
Jim, do we all have this sudden revelation?
Some of us grow into it more slowly.
And I have the second comment. A spiritual awakening may occur suddenly or slowly over time.
Hey, Jacqueline, what is the promise to all those who will become students and practitioners of this basic textbook?
But he who has come to allow all who have honestly sought him.
This is a promise come true for all of us who seek.
And Linda, if we try to apply these steps to our lives, what will happen?
When we drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us.
This is another promise of step 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we did it. And we're done with the chapter, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so now we're open for sharing. If you have had experience with the pages read tonight, please share. Stay on topic and mindful of time. You will see a 5-minute timer at the top of the screen. Absence of profanity offends no one. We are now open for comments, questions, observations, and spiritual experience based on the study material. Okay. Time to put your hands up, everybody. Oh, Linda, thank you for starting us out.
Hi, my name is Linda. I'm an alcoholic. You know, there's a whole wealth of knowledge, not knowledge, but information, you know, about the subject of God, you know, and your belief and your non-belief, and if you're an agnostic, if you're atheist, if you think you're an agnostic, if you think you're an atheist, even if you believe. It has a lot in here for people that do believe, that don't struggle with the issue of, you know, with the subject of God. I learned a lot from reading this, We Agnostics, you know, and I'm not an agnostic, and I don't struggle with, you know, with God, but it just taught me a lot too. You know, anyone can learn a lot from this chapter. It has a lot in here. And what I take away from it is that, you know, it says it at the end. Once we draw closer to God, he reveals himself, you know, and in here, and also someone said in the meeting, a lot of times we didn't know where to find God. God was always there. God is always inside of me. God is always there. God wakes me up. God puts me to sleep. But, you know, with this alcoholic mind, all this drinking, you know, all this drama, all this pain and suffering, you know, and agony that I was putting myself through, wasn't really life, but it was what I was putting myself through. It pushed me so far away from God. I felt that God was millions of miles away from me. I felt like God wasn't in my life. He was so busy with everyone else, he didn't even have time for me. And that's the way I felt, and I felt very empty and lonely inside. But coming to AA, this is what I was taught, you know. God bring me to AA, and then AA bring me right back to God. You know, it's a full circle. It is a full circle. God knew where to pick me up and to plant my behind. He knew where to put me. He knew what to do with me. I didn't know what to do with me. I didn't know where to begin. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know I was an alcoholic. I didn't know I'd be in this program, 12-step program for 37 years. I didn't know that. I didn't know I'd be sponsoring people, helping people helping me. I didn't know all this. But God knew. He plotted out my whole life, and he's still plotting out my life. And that's the only one I will allow to plot out my life is God. You know, and Dr. Bob's Nightmare, you know, if you read that and then you read a lot of other things here in this big book, it talks about Dr. Bob and his religious upbringing. You know, and I think that's the reason why you hear so much about God in this big book. You know, and that's where I fall back on. I fall back on my God every time. Every time. Every time. You know, I don't want my character defects to put a wedge between me and God. I don't want anything to keep me from drawing closer to God. Not my stubbornness, not my non-belief, you know, not any pain I may have, any confusion in my life, whatever. Alcohol, whatever it is. People, place, a thing. I don't want anything to get into the in-between and interfere and prevent me from drawing closer to God. To prevent me from, you know, having a better, a much more healthier, a much more valuable, a much more realer relationship with my God. I don't need myself to do that. because it wasn't the other people, it was me. And as I read in the big book, it lets me know it's me. You know, even though it's not about me, it's still me. I point the finger at me. You know, I can think all I want. I can think doom and gloom, and that's not even the situation sometimes. And if it is, you know what? I'm going to get through it without a drink. You know, and I'm just very grateful. I'm very grateful to be able to come to this big book study. You know, William told me about it. He tells other people, and you know, I tell other people about this big book study. And if you're serious about your recovery and you're serious about understanding everything about alcoholism and then your life as being an alcoholic and how you can just have better coping skills, you can have a better design for life, you can just understand, you just get so much wisdom. You know, I don't mean to go off in a tantrum, but you know, if you're really serious, you'll come to these big book meetings and you'll sit and you'll listen, even if you don't raise your hand, even if you just read the book with everyone and you just listen. Because I've learned a lot from listening to other people and the things that they share. You know, they share about themselves, and then that's how I learn about me. But I love this. I love this agnostics. I didn't like it at first. Like, oh, why are they going to talk about agnostics? These people, they don't even believe in God. Why we got to have this? You know, but as I as I became older and I read this more and more, I began to understand it more and to look at it in a different light. To look at it in a different light. And God is a great big part of my recovery. God is all of my recovery. It says it right there in that second step. I have to come to believe a power greater than myself can restore me to sanity. I have to believe that God will get me sober. And God will keep me sober. And that God will help me through my recovery process if I so let him, if I so align my will with God. You know, God is not a Santa Claus God. Give me what I want, and then I put him back in a box. That's not what it's about. Life is going to get lifey. I'm going to have my struggles, my situations, but my God will always be there. I can count on my God. My God is a dependable God, you know, and this book says it. I can get knocked to my knees, too, you know, with a spiritual awakening if I want to get too arrogant and start questioning God, you know, and I'm grateful for that, getting knocked to my knees, because it woke me up. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Linda. Jim.
Linda, thank you very much. Oh my goodness. Jim, an alcoholic. It's wonderful to be with you, fellow travelers. I woke up 5 minutes before this meeting began. It's been a long, long day. By the way, I tried to raise my hand earlier, but it wouldn't let me. On the 10th, I celebrated 24 years of sobriety. Just want to let everybody know that. Thank God and my sponsor. And I'm telling you right now, I can understand. This is a great chapter, and it's an amazing chapter. I have believed in God, but there was a time when I turned my back and walked away from the religion of my upbringing, and always had a hard time going back. And I really had I had a huge struggle with the whole punishing God thing. And I realized why recently. It's because I'm a punishing person. It's like, you know, if I feel slighted or crossed by somebody, I want to punish them. And then if that's the way I treat people, of course that's the way I'm going to think that's the way God treats me. And I don't need to live that way. Recently, you know, I've been acquainted with this stuff has come to me slowly. That's how I relate in the reading. To get it back to what we're talking about tonight. Some of us grew into it more slowly. That's me. I mean, I've always believed in God, but to allow God to work in my life and to see the working in my life and to see that it was God instead of self that was doing these things. My sponsor sent me a text yesterday or the other day. He said, in his quote, "Jim, please take this pledge. Here's the pledge. I am always in the right place at the right time doing the right thing." And, you know, and that's so true. I am here right now in the right place at the right time doing the right thing. And what is more important than being in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous? And thank you to the folks that put this meeting on. And it is an amazing meeting. I love this meeting. I wish I would have been in touch with something this earlier on in my recovery. I love it. It serves me and everybody else. And the thing is, the other day, a guy a guy went out, and he had sent me a bunch of texts, and I never got him. Something was wrong with my phone or something like that. And then when I got him, I thought he was saying he thought I went out because I hadn't been to a certain meeting for a few days. And so I called him and I left him a message. No, I'm fine. Everything's good. And well, the other day I've been praying for him and thinking about him, and he got in touch with me, and I brought him. He was wet when he called me, and I encouraged him to come to a meeting with me, and he did. And some crazy stuff happened with the meeting. He tried to claim his seat, and the chairperson cut him off and shut him up and stuff like that. And everything was the way it was supposed to be. At first, I copped the resentment, but then in the parking lot of that meeting, I worked through it with the higher power, and I prayed for this man, and I stood in the gap for him, and I didn't bring him back. God brought him back. I stood in the gap for him, and he came back. He was at a meeting this morning at the 7 a.m. meeting. And he was supposed to be my chair at that meeting today, and I ended up chairing it because he couldn't do the deal, obviously, because he didn't have the proper amount of sobriety. And I realized, in my opinion, my humble opinion, what was going on with him. He was struggling with step 3. He was starting his step 4, but he was struggling with step 3 because he told me, I always relapse, and he had in his mind that he always relapsed, and so he for some reason he relapsed. But I mean, now I'm doing this scientific prayer with Emmett Fox, and it is changing my perspective on life and my perspective on prayer, and it's opening how other people's experience is going to benefit me. This man's experience benefited me because I could see I was like that too, that I made things up that weren't true. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Jim, and congratulations on 24 years. Oh, there it is. Beautiful. Yay.
Thank you very much.
Well done. Glad you're part of this group. Okay, Lucia, hello. Would you like to share?
Absolutely. What a cool meeting. I'm an alcoholic. My name is Lucia, and I'm going to be short because I was a little late. But I got very excited when I heard somebody come in and said her first comment was that was Fitz Mayo. Well, Fitz Mayo wrote Our Southern Friend. And a friend of ours, there's a lady on the meeting with whom I've gone to meetings, so that's how small the world is. A lady with whom we went to meetings, and she passed away this summer. She pointed out that that's where the first step prayer is, where he goes, God, I've made a mess of it. It's on page 215. So that's Our Southern Friend, and his name was John Henry Fitzhugh Mayo. So after a suicide attempt, that's why he was an atheist. He thought he was an atheist. He was brought to Dr. Silkworth, and then he started. Now, interestingly enough, he is buried next to Jim Burwell, who was the guy from Texas who said, you must put in as we understand him in the phraseology in the steps. And they're buried next to one another. So at Christ Episcopal Church Cemetery in Maryland. So that's a happy ending, and I'll keep coming back.
Yes,
Thank you.
So it's Lucia?
It is. It's Lucia.
Lucia. Okay.
Yeah, it's Italian. Thank you so much, Terry, for your service, and everyone for their service. Joanne, good to see you.
Jacqueline,
Lucia.
Look at that pretty smile.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jacqueline, and I'm a recovered alcoholic. And this has been some good reading here. you know, whew, you know, I don't know when I came here if I was an atheist or agnostic. You know, I really did not believe that God could uh, fix me or restore me because I was one that when I walked through the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and I saw that word God, my whole mind shut. You know, because you know, I shared it in my fourth step. I had deep, deep, deep resentment towards this God, and I can remember prior to coming into Alcoholics Anonymous, I said to myself, "Damn this faith bit." Someone told me, you know, when you give up faith, you give up everything. You know, and that word vicissitude, you know, it's, and I had to look that word up. It simply, you know, mean ups and downs of life. Um, um, and that's how my life was. You know, I had a bunch of ups and downs in life. Uh, and I couldn't deal with it, you know, and a lot of things went bad. You know, I had a lot of fear, you know, anger, and I wanted to control everything. But it was until I got here to Alcoholics Anonymous, because no virtue brought me to Alcoholics Anonymous today. I know, you know, it was an act of providence, and also circumstances made me become willing to believe. You know, as the fog began to lift and I began to sit with you all, you know, I began to hear how y'all got through y'all ups and downs and didn't take a drink. You know, I began to say, oh, yeah, I felt that happened to me, or this could happen to me, you know. And it talks about, thus our friend's cornerstone was fixed in place. And, you know, I have been taught in Alcoholics Anonymous that, you know, the first step is our foundation, and then we build up on that cornerstone, you know, and it says, thus our friend cornerstone fixed in place, no ladder, virtue had shaken it, you know, and what that means to me is that I'm talking about today. You know, I still have my ups and downs. I thank God really for that foundation here in Alcoholics Anonymous and the cornerstones, because I'm trying to build an arch to walk a free woman, you know. But I have to get rid of a lot of stuff and you know, build that arch, and then I have to begin to start building inside. Um, and I like when, and like I said, you know, just by you all share circumstances, y'all circumstances, and I begin to look at my circumstances, it made me willing to believe. And it says, I humbly offer himself, myself, to the maker, then he knew, you know, and, you know, and it took time. I'm talking like it happened just like that, but it took time, you know, and I know every AA meeting can restore me to sanity if I rightly relate myself to God, you know, and it says, and this man, I'm quite in talking about Bill, he got it very sudden, but mine has come to me very slowly. I have grown into it very slowly because of self, you know. And when they talk about, you know, the destruction, you know, it's simple, but it's not easy. A price has to be paid, and that's destruction of self-centeredness. And destruction for me, I had to tear down that old self, and to be reborn, and I can't do it. The Father has to do it, but I have to be willing, and sometimes that my ego still gets in play. But I truly believe, and this is a promise, and I'm gonna shut up. I truly believe when I drew near to God, God, God disclosed himself to me. And each and every day, I try to draw near and near, because when I draw near to God, he will disclose himself to me and make me a better person. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Alyssa, Pinky, come on in.
Thank you, Terry. And thank you, Jacqueline, because, I've had this. My name is Alyssa. I'm a recovered alcoholic. And the promises, the warning, the directions in the book, when I studied the big book, I asked God to make it simple for me because I am very good at overcomplicating everything. And about a year and a half ago, God was like, all right, Alyssa, we're going to make it simple for you. And I went through every step using the big book page, the beginning of the book to page 164, with every step. And he had me break it down, the promise, the warning, the direction, and if there was a prayer. And I have a script of it. And, this is the promise. It says, even so, God has restored us all to our right minds. To this person, the revolution was sudden. The warning, some of us grow into it more slowly. But he has come to all, and then the direction, who have honestly sought him. So I need to honestly seek my higher power. And then the rest of the promises, when we drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us. I have to do that on a daily basis. And I don't have to. Today I get to. And my higher power has been doing like a spring cleaning on me the last 3 or 4 days. Life on Life's Terms has been happening. And I've probably cried more in the last 4 or 5 days than I have in the last 4 or 5 years. But what has happened is I have sought my higher power, and he has disclosed himself to me, because I put myself there. God allows me that free will. There's so many promises in our way of life. And if I show up with the willingness, the honesty, and the open-mindedness, I get all of them. And that might be life on life's terms, right? Like, it may not be the situation that I envision, but God's got a plan for it. It's an opportunity for me to grow closer to him. It removes the expectation. And it's just the most beautiful thing. Because before coming into AA, I don't think I had cried in the longest time. And then even my first couple of years, I don't think I cried because I didn't think that was strength. I didn't think that was okay to do. But today I can move through my emotions appropriately when I seek him. If I don't seek him, I don't move through those emotions appropriately. And today I get all of the promises that this way of life, that these 164 pages assure me if I follow those directions and I heed those warnings. And those are huge warnings. And I'm so thankful for this study, because without that, I don't think I would have ever been able to look at these words the way that God has allowed me to. You know, to break the book down to, this is what it is. It's a direction, there's the warning, there's a prayer, there's a promise, and sometimes it flips order. Sometimes he shows us the promise before the prayer and then the direction, you know, but I can find it in the text today. And myself alone couldn't do that. God did that for me, you know, and he used all of you to show that to me. So thank you so much for being a part of my sobriety. And thank you for reminding me why I do this on a daily basis.
Thank you, Alyssa. Joanne.
Hey, family. My name is Joanne, and I'm an alcoholic. And I enjoyed the reading just by listening to, and hey, Lucy, me and her from the same home group. But anyway, I thank God for allowing me to get here when I got here. And I thank God for sponsorship, because when I got here, I believed in God and I wanted God. And when I heard that that's what somebody told me, that's what I needed in order to get this program, I got excited. And I've been excited ever since I've been here. And I thank God for sponsorship, because I'm looking back through my pages, and what Lucy was saying, I was taught about Fish M and all that good stuff. And I was taught about this. He was an atheist and how he came to believe. And then they said, "Who are you to say there is no God?" And I used to have a problem in the room. And I found out what the problem was. The problem was when I heard that. I thought I heard that everybody had a God, but they weren't saying that. They were saying that you find your own understanding of God. So once that registered with me, then I calmed down. I wasn't so feisty. And then it says, sometimes it comes sudden, or sometimes it comes like spiritual awakening. And I think that mine grew over time. And it said he humbled off himself to his maker, then he knew. And then I was told that there was a prayer. Then it said, even so had God restored us all to our right mind. To this man, the revelation was sudden. Some of us drove into it more slowly. But he had come to all who have honest saw him. And that was my prayer, to ask him to enter into my heart, to let me come to life, let me believe, because they were saying that you have to come to believe. You got to feel something to make sure that you want what y'all had to offer. And that used to be my prayer. And then it said, I was told that they said when we drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us. And I was taught that God get with us when we want to get with him. And I wanted to get with him. I wanted to make contact with him because I felt that my life would be better. My life would change because I came from Mississippi and I was raised as a Baptist and I was a Sunday school teacher. So I believed in him all my life. But something went wrong and something happened to me during my drinking days. Well, then when I got in order for me to get to y'all, I had asked him for help, and he brought me to y'all. So I was confused. I was confused, but it took time to work with my sponsor for the big book to come to life in me, And it said the circumstance, surrounding condition as impossible, condition, situation, and I had a lot of condition. I had a lot of situation. I was homeless. I didn't have my family no more. I was hurt. I was full of fear. I was scared. So I didn't know what to believe. I was homeless. I didn't know what to do. But I came here and I heard y'all talk about what we talking about tonight. But I had a sponsor, and my sponsor helped me with the chapter. He said he stood in the presence of infinity power and love. He had stepped from bridge to shore. For the first time, he lived in a conscious companionship with his creator. I began to feel, I began to, like the five senses, like God was bringing me back, like he was restoring me. I began to make sense. I wasn't like I used to be, where everything goes. I didn't want to believe I was doing certain things that caused pain, and then, but when I got here to y'all and I began to listen, I began to get in this big book with my sponsor. It began to make a lot of sense, you know. But anyway, I like that chapter. Y'all made me go back to said God had restored to sanity. He did. He restored me, and He's still restoring me today. Cause sometimes I can go there now, unbelief, because situation might happen in my life or circumstances might come about. Then I have to feel like it's not gonna happen because of fear. But when I get close to Him, I ask Him to come close to me. He always reveals Himself. That was so good about it. But anyway, this was a good part of the reading that we read, and I enjoy all the comments. And I'm glad to be part of this, and thank you. I'm going to keep coming back.
Hey, Rick, you're up.
Hello, everyone. Rick Alcoholic. Thank you for the message of God being at work here. I came in 2008, and after over about 40 years of drinking, I was angry at myself. I wasn't angry at God.
Yeah.
Because I came into AA not wanting to stop, angry at myself, saying if you had slowed down like you told yourself in the 70s, you wouldn't have to be in these rooms. But it took Alcoholics Anonymous to teach me and to give me the education, and that I couldn't make that decision back in the 70s because I was already an alcoholic. That put an explanation on it for me. Toned down my anger for myself. I'm just angry that I had the disease. But because of the grace of God and this program, March 3rd turned out to be 16 years for me. I've been, like I've heard tonight in the other shares, I've been doing some reflecting about my life today, the retirement life that I get to enjoy and live due to God in the program of AA. And I do reflect on days back. When I came in 2008, I wasn't really accepting all of this. I knew God existed. I wasn't. I'm only here to stop drinking. Whether I have to involve Him or, I needed step 2 in the worst way to be restored to sanity, and I didn't know it. My first sponsor used to tell me, just invite him in, right? He didn't tell me to get on my knees, he didn't tell me to buy a Bible, he didn't tell me to go to church. He told me just invite him in. I started realizing I didn't know how to do that. Well, guess what? I just invite him in every day. I used some prayers. This morning I just sat with him, and but when that happened about 16 years ago, I'm sitting in. When I first started to turn to God, I'm sitting in a meeting, and I was sitting in a meeting. Almost 2 weeks went by, and I realized how I have not gone to a liquor store after or before a meeting since I invited him in. If I knew that date, that'd be my sobriety date. Anyways, I told my sponsor about that, and he said, did you share that? I said, no. And when he said that to me, and I said no, I remember I cared that I did not. I wish I had. That wasn't me before. I would be like, well, I don't give a darn, who cares about that? I remember caring. I didn't share that. I started to realize slowly. It's only in circumstances. Circumstances made him willing to believe. circumstances that still go on today that I know who's at work here. I ask them to keep me busy. I haven't had to ask anyone in a long time if they need a sponsor, if they need to go through the steps. I'm being asked. And for a number of years now, I've been doing it. People come up to me. That's God sending them. I'm not overwhelmed by it. I still got plenty of time to myself. I ask them to keep me busy because my will is there to sit in that recliner and that's on the other side of this wall here and just watch TV at night. So I stay close to him. I stay very close to him and let him guide me. I love Jamie's analogy of aligning his will with God's will. The little spoon and the big spoon is exactly like that. My willingness can disappear. I can look behind the God if I want and see my mediocre willingness. But if I stay right there with God, my road that I'm trudging it is a good road. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Rick. Xavier, you're up.
Good evening, Xavier, recovered alcoholic. So glad to be here. Just got done with work, and sorry I missed the reading tonight, but I really like the shares I heard so far. It's been a really great St. Patty's Day, a very rough day at work in a good way. But I just want to share, I made a really fun amends today, and it was awesome. I had a old friend of mine who was particularly nasty in the legal world, who just took a really nasty shot at me. And I was chatting afterwards about it with my wife, and then I realized I did the same thing to a young man back in high school named Scott Ferragona, and I was the chess champion, and I would crush people at chess, and this young man, 2 grades below me, came up the ranks, and I took him under my wing, and then one day he beat me, and I was very vicious about it, and I was very petty, and I was very jealous, and I broke off on the chess team, and I did a little coup and created my own chess team, and it was very hurtful. So all these years, and I'm now 45, and I think he's 43, I immediately thought of him, and there's a local attorney who's very jealous and saying nasty things, and it really hurt. It hurt my feelings. So I thought, oh my goodness, I need to go make an amends. So I looked him up right away, and I called him. His face popped right up. He's chess champion of Alabama, it turns out. He's been a chess champion for many years. So he's a chess master now. He kept playing. And he's a mathematics university professor down there. And we had a 20-minute conversation, and he was very, very kind. And he said, I did hurt his feelings back in high school. And every now and then he looks me up and he always wonders what happened to me, because I don't play in tournaments like I stopped a long time ago. And it felt good because practicing the principles of the program, I took a perceived negative and I got out of victimhood, and I thought, how can I work my program? How can I, and then doing a quick spot check inventory, I asked God to remove it. That's my 3-year-old son. And then or 5-year-old son. And then pulled on myself with my wife. And then I quickly helped somebody else, which in this case was Scott Ferguson, who did superior to me at chess. Now the whole world knows. So I will admit it. And it felt good. And now when I think back today, I'm so grateful all this happened because it taught me an amazing lesson. And I'm so grateful for the program. And I'm grateful that amends was made. And I'm really, really, really happy about it. And now I can have a lot of empathy for the attorney who's saying nasty things about me. And he can be as jealous as he wants because I do the exact same thing. So who am I to judge him or his process? And I can have love and compassion because by making an amends, I'm able to forgive myself. And as I forgive myself and realize I'm not perfect, I can certainly forgive this other guy and realize it has nothing to do with me. So I'm really happy about that. So just wanted to share that, and I hope everyone has a happy St. Patty's Day. Thank you.
Thanks, Xavier. There you are. Trish, you're up.
Hi, everybody. I'm Trish. I'm an alcoholic. And, you know, I love this reading that we did tonight. And, you know, there's another big book study that I go to local, and we're about at the same spot. So it's great that I get to talk about it twice. I grew up, as I'm sure many of you know, in a house. We went to church. We grew up with a religious faith, and I walked away from it. And for a long time, I had the same feeling that Fitz had. If there is a God, he certainly hasn't done anything for me. Because at that point, I wasn't willing to look at the fact that all those spots that I kept ending up in were nothing to do with God. They were all direct results of my actions, my attitudes, my behaviors. And there were times that I had that thought, is it possible that all those people that I grew up with, all those religious people that I knew, were wrong? Were they right? And living in judgment because I didn't like the way they were. I didn't like their God, basically. I walked away from the God that they were telling me to understand, and then I lived in judgment. That's not right. That's a wrong God. You can't believe in that. Why? It's not my place to do any of that. But I just use that as more fuel to the fire to keep that distance from God and not seek him, not have any relationship, and just turn my back and blame everything on him. And then I did get to that point in life. Maybe not the thunderbolt, but I did start having thoughts of, who are you to say there is no God? Look at everything good that's happened in your life. Look at where you are. Look at where you were. Look at where you could be. Who got you out of those scrapes? Because it certainly wasn't you. Or who got me out of those scrapes? Because it certainly wasn't me. I couldn't have done that, some of those things that happened. And I had moments of the conviction of a presence of God, as it talks about. I had glimpses of God in my life, just enough that I didn't totally say God doesn't exist, but not enough for me to want to keep seeking and say, what is that? But then I was sitting here one day and having this conversation with somebody about God and relationship with God. And I had this very distinct feeling of a hand on my shoulder. And I knew that that was the presence of God. The presence of God's love in my life, saying, I'm here, I've always been here. And that made me want to seek more. There were times I grew into God slowly, because I saw little glimpses here and there. But that particular day, that was my thunderbolt. Have I felt it again? No, not really. But I know it happened. I know it was there. I know it was God. And that gave me the desire to want to continue to honestly seek, because I know now where that gets me. I know the end result. When I draw near, he disclosed himself to us, and I knew that day without a shadow of a doubt that he was there. No question in my mind. And I know if I continue to seek, if I continue to walk with God and ask for that direction each day, and do what God puts in front of me, that I will continue to have God, or God will continue to disclose himself to me as I'm walking and living in his direction. I'm still going to see him if I say, nope, I'm not going to take that direction, and I'll probably still end up at the same place. But I'm going to have but I'll certainly have certainly a roundabout route, which may not be quite as easy to get there. But I've got to do that action. And I've got to follow that promise, or live with that promise. He will come if I seek him. When I draw near, he disclosed himself. Both to me are promises. But I've got to take that action of seeking first. Thanks.
Thanks, Trish. Larry.
Yeah, I'm Larry. I'm an alcoholic. I wasn't going to say anything tonight, but I just felt compelled. Even so, as God restored us all to our right minds to this man, the revelation was sudden. Some of us grow into it more slowly, but he has come to all of us who have honestly something. I found myself when I got into Alcoholics Anonymous talking myself out of a relationship with God because I had failed him. I had walked away from God. I'd walked away from faith. I'd walked away from everything. I therefore talked myself out of anything there was to do with God in my life or anything good. And, I at least anything deep. I tried to stand by just the bare minimum that the program had so that I could get through the steps and get through everything. But I found myself over the years after getting into Alcoholics Anonymous, I guess I was in it for 11, 12 years. I found my life filled with anger building, rage building, resentment still unresolved in my life, and I could not seemingly get away from it. And I remember finding myself in the parking lot of Wendy's parking lot one night, and something happened that totally, in my opinion, was unprovoked and should not have happened. And I reached through that little window and tried to grab the 20-year-old kid and tried to grab him through the window to beat the daylights out of him because of my unresolved anger. And before anything else happened, I sped away from the window and I went up the hill and I parked and I called my sponsor to tell him what had happened. And he said, "What are you doing?" And he said, I'm looking down at the cars in the parking lot that are parked. It was during COVID. And I said, and I'm fixing to break the headlights and the windshields of those that are parked in the parking lot at Wendy's. and I was out of control. I was completely off the rails. And he said, "Have you prayed about it?" And I said, "Prayed? Are you crazy?" I said, I knew what God was going to say to me if I prayed. And he said, "Yeah, I think you need to go home. And I think tonight of all nights, you need to pray." And I remember that. And so because I told my sponsor when he started sponsoring me that I would take every suggestion that he had, I would take it to heart. For some reason, I left that parking lot. I went home, and for whatever reason, I prayed. And I don't know what it was. I don't know what it was about that night. But then the miracle happened to me. It isn't always so sudden. This I found in Women's Supper, too. It was a story in the back of the book. But this was my story, and I find it to be exactly what happened to me. It isn't always so sudden with everyone. But I ran into a personal crisis that filled me with a raging and righteous anger, and I was fumed helplessly and planned to get good and drunk and show them. My eye caught a scene, a sentence in the book lying open on my bed. We cannot live with anger. The walls crumbled and the light streamed in. I wasn't trapped. I wasn't helpless. I was free. I didn't have to drink to show them. This wasn't religion. This was freedom. Freedom from anger and fear. Freedom to know happiness. Freedom to know love. And that prayer that night, that little prayer that I did and prayed that little night, began the process to remove that anger and that rage and bring in that light into my life that I have today. And I'm so thankful that my sponsor told me that night, tonight of all nights, I believe you need to pray. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Larry. Jamie?
Good evening, family. My name's Jamie. Very grateful, recovered alcoholic. Good to have all of you with us tonight. I'm just going to take a minute here. Definitely one of the most profound pieces of literature on the planet, the chapter to the Agnostics. And what it did for me is it gave me a pathway to let go of old ideas and old beliefs and open my heart and mind to new ideas and new beliefs. What were those old ideas and old beliefs? Partly in the religion that I was born into. And the more I find out about the dark history of that, the more I'm glad I don't have anything to do with it anymore. But the big book also tells us to be quick to see where religious people are right and make use of what they have to offer. And I don't do religion today, but I certainly do spiritual relationship with God. And that has been my pathway. And when I'm working with somebody new, this is the chapter that I want to get them to. I want to get them through the steps and everything else, but I want to get them to this chapter more than anything. And I'm a line by line and let's read it together and talk about it kind of guy. I'm so glad that Jim Burwell was mentioned as well, because his great contribution to Alcoholics Anonymous was a higher power, a God of our own understanding, because he felt that Bill had too much God stuff in the program. And that came from his own atheism, or as he liked to call it later on, his militant agnosticism. You know, and Hank Parkhurst was also one of those other people. And these are founding members of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm in this Facebook group that is a service group, and somebody posted the other day, not understanding why they don't have the spirit of rotation in the founding stories, right? And they specifically mentioned Fitzmayo, and they very much implied that the Fitzmayo story would be taken out of the 5th edition, but I haven't found any documentation. There's nothing to authenticate that at the time. My personal opinion is it would be a very big mistake to remove it from the book. We meet Fitz 3 times in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. He is the second man that the doctor talks about at the end of the doctor's opinion. We meet him here in We Agnostics, and then of course in his personal story, Our Southern Friend. And all of it is part of coming to believe, step 2. And that's what this chapter is about. It doesn't say we had to believe, it says we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And I don't care if you're atheist, agnostic, true believer, somewhere in between. I don't care if you're a little green man from a different planet. If you come to Alcoholics Anonymous because of our 3rd step, you are allowed to find a power greater than yourself that doesn't have to look like mine or anybody else's in this room, or the popes, or the Baptist minister, the Mormon bishop, or the snake shaker. It's just got to be a power that will work for the individual. I love the promises at the very end of this chapter. Even so, God has restored us all to our right minds. That's a promise. And then it gives us the difference between a spiritual experience and a spiritual awakening. And then the next promise, but he has come to all who have honestly sought. You know, I know many people of faith who don't honestly seek. I know lots of good church-going folks that suffer from spiritual malady right and left. That's not a criticism, it's just an observation. And how do I know how to observe that? Because I suffer from spiritual malady. In every aspect of my life. Alcoholism is only one part of it. And I love this line. When we drew near to him, he disclosed himself. When I take the action to draw near to God, he will disclose himself to me. But so many people have the attitude, well, he's God, and if he wants to do it, he'll do it for me, and if he don't, he won't. Well, God can't do anything in my life without the invitation from me to come into my life and become that power that will make change in my life. And how do I know that? Because there is this thing called, that God gave me, a gift called free will. So when I take my free will and I make it align and conform with his will, it's the proper use of my free will. And if not, I'm like that little spoon, man. I'm out there bouncing around all over the rest of the world, trying to make things happen the way I want. The truth is, nothing has to be the way that I want it. There's a saying, River God says, go with the flow. You know the beautiful thing about that? If you stand on a riverbank, and the water that you watch pass through that river, it will never pass through that river again. Different water will, but that particular water you're looking at the moment never will. So in my journey of Alcoholics Anonymous, this chapter made it easy for me to come back to God. And the rest of the process just enlarged all of it. I know many people on Alcoholics Anonymous with decades of sobriety. Nah, I'm good, man. I don't need to take them steps anymore. Well, good for them, but I'll tell you what, I've been around a long time, and I need to continually live in the practice of the steps of my life every day, and especially step 11, step 10. And if I'm properly doing the 10th step inventory on page 84, it lets me see how I'm treating the rest of you. If I'm properly doing the 11th step inventory on page 86, when we retire at night, and honestly answering all of those questions, it will always cycle me down to a 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th every time, without fail. Come in contact with lots of people every day. I never intentionally tried to hurt anyone. That doesn't mean, however, that sometimes I don't hurt other people. I don't try to. Hell, I know people that are offended just the fact that I'm still sucking wind on this big blue bubble, but that's their issue, not mine. Here's what I know for sure and for certain. Even with decades of sobriety, doubting my purpose in life and what God's intentions were for me, because of continuing to seek, I have absolutely no doubt in my life what God's intention for me is. And how do I know that? Because God reveals his will to me one day at a time, one meeting at a time, one phone call at a time, one text at a time. And if I get to the end of my day and I feel happy, joyous, and free inside, I have a reasonable idea that I am doing some semblance of God's will. Keep coming back. We would love to see you as we kick off next week's chapter for about 8 weeks, and it's only going to tell us how to do 2 things: how to take step 3 and how to take step 4. Thanks. Xavier's got his hand back up, Terry.
Xavier?
Christina.
Oh, Christine.
Oh, hi. So I just wanted to log on quick and I'll be up in 1 minute, honey. Sorry, kids are getting ready for bed, but I wanted to say that he told you that story. It was really funny how that happened, actually. And I went to a meeting this afternoon and we were reading There's a Solution, and it's a study too. So we just did a couple of pages. But the funny thing about that, I'll just say real quick. So I was looking at his yearbook and I knew he had this situation where the kid on his chess team beat him and he was jealous. So it's weird how this story came about. My son was looking at the book and he said, like, who's daddy's friend? And I said, oh, it's this kid, Scott Varagona or whatever. And then today this situation happened with a former colleague of his, and I just said, like, oh, remember when Scott Varagona and you were jealous of him? Because this other guy's acting jealous of my husband. And he started laughing, and then he said, like, yeah, I was jealous. So it was really interesting, because then I said, well, maybe you want to make amends. And then he did. And I mean, like, it's just, you never know. And then the funny thing about that is, on Saturday, we went to a speaker meeting that was out of California. And one of the big takeaways for me was the main speaker, he had 25 years of sobriety, and he said, if I'm not feeling happy, joyous, and free, there's probably people on my 9-step list that I haven't taken care of. And I thought of 2 on mine. So like, maybe a situation will, and then hearing Jamie and being reminded that if I'm letting my life unfold one moment at a time in this process of recovery and using the steps, if I'm actually practicing these principles in all my affairs, God will allow my life to unfold each day in a way that I feel that presence and that meaning. And when my life is filled with the meaning that I get through this program, Alcoholics Anonymous, I do have a pretty awesome life. And I do feel a satisfaction that nothing earthly can give me, because it's these unique interactions, these unique opportunities that I'm given in the program. And I'm just really grateful I got to share and see you guys. So thanks.
Thanks for sharing that. Okay, Trish, will you read our closing for us?
I
And
will.
close us out. I believe we switched it so you close us out too.
Okay. I will, thank you. From page 164. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. And we will go ahead and close out with a moment of silence. And what we do here, for those of you who are new, since we can't gather around the table and hold our hands as we pray out, we put our hands up in the screen, and that's how we connect to pray with and for each other. And we do that a lot in this room. And we'll take a moment of silence for those still suffering inside and outside of these rooms, especially those who may die tonight, either because they haven't found their way to us or because they found us and they weren't ready and they left. So here's your moment. Thank you. And who brings us from shame to grace if we let Him? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
Hallowed be thy name.
Thy kingdom come.
Thy kingdom come.
Thy will be done.
Thy will be
On
done.
earth as it
On
is in heaven.
earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day
Give us
our
this
daily bread.
day
And
our
forgive
daily
us our
bread.
trespasses,
Forgive us our
trespasses,
trespasses,
as
as we forgive those who trespass against us.
and lead us not
And
into
lead us not into
temptation,
temptation,
but
but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory
Forever and
Great
ever.
meeting.
Amen.
What a powerful meeting.
Thanks,
Great to
everybody.
see you, Joey, and God bless everybody. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
week. Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everyone. Great meeting.